Okay, welcome everyone. I'm delighted to take this opportunity to sit down with Antonio Grassi, who's the amazing CTO at Fastcall. I'm Andy Fawcett, and I'm an independent consultant in the Salesforce ecosystem. In the next 20 minutes or so, we'll hear more from Antonio as he helps to tell us more about what makes Fastcall special, how his team really values the Salesforce platform now. They see it as a strategic advantage to them, as well as what the future holds. So let's start digging in and learn a little bit more about Antonio. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Andrew. I am Antonio, and I was born and raised in Uruguay. As a child, there used to be a Commodore Amiga 500 computer at home, and with it, I fell in love with gaming first and programming after. After high school, then I followed my passion for computers, starting university and eventually obtaining a degree in computers engineering. Before the advent of the cloud and things like Node.js. Uh, I coded in C, assembly, lots of PHP and LAMP work,
Nice.
and lots of Java. In 2009, I joined the team in charge of the development of the web portal for that year's Dreamforce edition.
Cool.
And since then, my primary focus has shifted over to Salesforce. Finally, in 2010, I met Richard Rosen, and since then, I've been involved in creating and improving Fastcall, currently acting as its CTO.
Fantastic. Well, I can certainly share a commonality there with you with the advent of home computing with the Commodore Amiga. That was a 16-bit system, if I remember correctly. I'll date myself ever so slightly by saying that the home computing came into my life during the 8-bit era, just predecessor of 16-bit, of course, but very much fond memories of the Amiga and followed a similar path as you with gaming and coding. So Fastcall sounds like an exciting place to work. And my understanding is that initially you didn't really start out with being an ISV in mind. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yes, that's correct. When I initially met Richard, he was looking into curating, let's say, listings for local directory pages, like the yellow pages.
Hmm.
Fastcall will place
Nice.
automated calls to these merchants, ranking and scoring better the merchants who answer. And then this information was then imported into Salesforce. Later, Fastcall helped two other clients who were also using Salesforce in minimizing the time to call for their new web leads by automating outbound calls to the new leads and distributing these calls among the available agents. However, Fastcall had no way of knowing if the agents were not talking on their desk phones or
Hmm.
mobile devices. So we decided to build our own dialer in Salesforce to have better visibility into this for routing purposes. When these two projects reached conclusion, we were then left with this simple dialer, which was native in Salesforce. So in 2013, we decided to publish it on the APP Exchange.
Wow.
Uh, those initial times were wild times. Before OpenCTI, we had to scrape the HTML to identify the phone number fields in the Salesforce page layouts.
Wow.
And we grabbed some Salesforce some session cookie from Visualforce, I think it was, as the primary means of authentication against the backend. Uh, Lightning did not exist. It was all classic. And so we styled some HTML sidebar components using Bootstrap and jQuery.
Wow, wild times indeed. And for those obviously, needs must, and those were some interesting techniques to get started. But things changed when OpenCTI came along. But for those of the listeners not familiar, tell us a little bit more about what OpenCTI is and what impact that had on you.
Well, in the realm of Sales Cloud, it is basically an SDK. So your application can register JavaScript listener methods and be notified when a user clicks on a phone number field on a Salesforce page layout. That's basically it.
Fantastic. Okay, so much more secure than using session IDs from Visualforce. I think we also want to mention for our listeners that that's not something that we're recommending, and Salesforce actively
Right,
promotes
right.
not to use that. But thankfully, you got a great API in the form of OpenCTI from Salesforce. And what happened next?
Well, since then, Fastcall has kept improving as a product and as a company. As a product, it went from an outbound only dialer with little features other than starting an outbound call and logging it in Salesforce to an application that supports voice, messaging, video, and chat,
Wow.
and does much more than what an Android or iPhone offers natively, adding lots of productivity features and all inside Salesforce.
Mm.
Then, as a company, it grew organically and developed a core of loyal employees that help grow and maintain the products and also support and advise our subscribers. Over the last 13 plus years, there have been more than 4,200 installs worldwide that reviewed Fastcall with a 97% of five-star reviews.
That's such an amazing journey that you guys have gone through. I remember being back in the ISV ecosystem myself at that time frame, and I think you've really categorized it well as it being a wild time, but certainly one of great innovation and opportunity. And you certainly have seized that opportunity ever since. So when you mentioned Fastbill being native onto the platform, let's dig into that a little bit further. What specifically does that mean, and what's the value to the user?
Well, for Fastcall, it was kind of natural. It just happened. Me and other early time developers who helped create Fastcall, we were already Salesforce developers by the time that we joined Fastcall. Um, Over the last 10 plus years, the voice messaging and productivity landscape has evolved a lot. And there have been lots of offerings in the APP exchange that are great products and have huge companies behind. But these alternative products approach Salesforce like just one other
Mm-hmm.
integration. We at Fastcall, we liked Salesforce and the Salesforce ecosystem. So we just stuck to it. And even more, we decided to focus on and specialize in Salesforce as our main competitive advantage. So Fastcall has been a registered Salesforce ISV for almost 15 years now.
Wow, that's great.
Uh, being native in Salesforce means not only that the application's code is on or runs on the Salesforce platform,
Mm-hmm.
it also means that Fastcall is a Salesforce first and Salesforce only company. So if Salesforce is central to your business, then Fastcall could be a great fit. Uh, Fastcall, like we just mentioned, Fastcall was the first ISV to integrate via
Mm-hmm.
OpenCTI when it first appeared, and among the first ones to integrate with sales engagement, which at that time was called high velocity sales.
Ah, okay.
It also integrates with omni-channel, instant conversation insights, and of course, Agentforce. The communications data is kept in Salesforce, where it can be viewed and reported and audited using Salesforce's native tools. Automations can be set up to react to changes in this data via Salesforce flows, Apex, and the usual ways. And these automations can easily start voice calls or send messages. And all this activity is logged in Salesforce. Organizations, at least the ones that we work with, have already chosen to rely on Salesforce to keep their data secure. Fastcall leverages Salesforce's proven security framework, so communications data follows the same policies already put in place by your organization in Salesforce by means of profiles and permission sets, sharing rules, hierarchies, and all the other security related settings that Salesforce provides.
That's great. I think you really captured one of the key aspects of being native on the platform, and that's obviously storing the data on the platform, but leveraging all of the data security capabilities that the platform has to offer, because all organizations are different, of course, and they can implement that on top of your data using all these wonderful features. And I understand that Fastcall uses third-party service. How does that work? How do you manage that and ensure that from a security perspective as well?
Yes, you're right. Fastcall uses Twilio to interface with the
Nice.
telecom carriers. And Fastcall manages the different telecom regulations put in place during the last few years, like shake and stir for voice calls and A2P campaigns for messaging, in order to offer the best possible trust level for your organization so that your calls and messages get through the telecommunications carriers networks to its destination and are indeed presented to and answered by the recipient on their device.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, Twilio is an excellent platform. So let's move on a little bit about how you're actually integrating with Salesforce. You're built on Salesforce, we understand that, but what are some of the values of that? One for me, having built on and around the Salesforce platform for many years, I see Lightning Experience and Salesforce Mobile as being the desktop and mobile respective capabilities as having lots of hooks, lots of ways in which developers and partners like yourself can extend that and in effect keep the user in the flow of work because they're not having to reach out to a different application experience. So do you have some good examples of how Fastcall has kind of kept the integration tight within these particular user experiences?
Yes, and you mentioned two of them. For example, Lightning Design System. Since ever, Fastcall does intentionally look like Salesforce. Nowadays, it follows Salesforce's Lightning Design System, and is built on the Lightning Design System for React implementation.
Oh, nice.
Organization users don't need to leave Salesforce, and they don't need to learn a new way of doing things. From their perspective, they are just using Salesforce, and that's our primary goal. And then you mentioned Salesforce Mobile.
Yeah.
Fastcall does rely on the Salesforce mobile application to provide its experience in mobile devices. Calls and messages are presented via push notifications from the Salesforce mobile application. These notifications can be tapped on, and then the call can be answered or replied, or you can quick text in Fastcall inside the Salesforce mobile application. So the idea here is that even when using their personal mobile devices, the data about the communications is still logged in Salesforce. And all the data that already exists in Salesforce for your organization is available to your agents to empower their daily job.
Fantastic. So even though they're using the Salesforce mobile device, the data is still contained within Salesforce within that application.
Correct.
Fantastic. I always find as a developer, I've done a little bit of mobile development in the past, and understanding native push notifications and things is something you just have to understand and go through if you're building a mobile app. But as soon as Salesforce started enabling that in the Salesforce mobile app and giving that capability through its products and to us as developers. It was amazing to see that you could just become a mobile developer by just using the Salesforce mobile application, but still developing in the technologies and languages that you're comfortable with. So fantastic for developers, of course, but great for your users. As you explained, they can stay in the focus and flow of work that they're in with Salesforce and not have to navigate too far to take those calls or make those calls. So the telephone use has evolved significantly. And when I first started working and chatting with you guys, it's like simple voice calls today have now become smartphones and powerful multi-channel communication devices. Now, how has Fastcall adapted over the years to these changes, and what are there any emerging industry technologies that are shaping your future strategy?
You're right. The world is moving from traditional telecommunication carrier calls and text messages to digital channels where the phone is a computer connected to the internet, basically. However, a huge diversity exists between different regions of the world in terms of products, channels, and protocols. And sometimes this is because of competing products and trends, like, for example, WhatsApp and iMessage, or it could be also like aging or legacy implementations, like, for example, the old school SMS text messages. Fastcall has always kept an eye on the industry trends, both in the field of the telecommunications and in Salesforce. We see things like RCS, which is a new modern standard for messaging. It aims at unifying the existent diversity around text and media sharing protocols like WhatsApp, iMessage, and so on, while at the same time enriching the messaging experience with programmable buttons and actions so that it's easier to make a decision directly from within the conversation. Another recent uh, trend or big change that is coming is, of course, AI, and in Salesforce, Agentforce. These agents relate in a different way, conversational experiences that change the way that we interact with our phone devices and the way we today interact with individual separate applications. We are going from double clicking or tapping on UI control from different applications into having a conversation with one personalized AI agent that will take care of everything for us. So our goal at Fastcall is to help organizations evolve and adapt to these changes by enabling these new channels and also provide an end user experience that encompasses everything from older PBX based voice channels and SMS messaging from decades ago with way all the way to modern voice messaging, video, and AI conversations over the internet, and all this in a meaningful and unified view for the end user. And to do all this in Salesforce.
Fantastic. Yes, I love that kind of strong steel thread you have through everything you're talking about and your product at large, everything in Salesforce. You know, it's not on Salesforce, it's in Salesforce. And I think it's a real strong DNA for what you're building and continue to build. So great. Yeah, look forward to seeing and hearing more about those advancements. And speaking of changing times and innovation, talk to me about and the listeners here about how you grow with your customers, and they have growing complexity needs and response time requirements as they grow. Tell me a little bit about, and the listeners here, about how you've tackled that aspect of building the Fastcall application.
Of course. The truth is that Salesforce is not designed to be used as an application server in real-time scenarios. So over the last couple of years, the team at Fastcall has been working hard in re-architecting the call routing and login engine, which has been migrated to Node.js code running on Heroku. For us, Heroku was the natural choice when Fastcall needed to scale beyond its previous solution, because staying within the Salesforce ecosystem minimizes our external dependencies and also maintains trust, which is very important. And this migration and re-architecture of Fastcall delivered 5 to 10 times performance improvements, eliminating timeouts and enabling enterprise scale deployments. It also enabled Fastcall to onboard our largest customer yet, and nearly 1,000 users migrating from Microsoft Teams without requiring a dedicated DevOps team and allowing our team to focus on product development.
Fantastic. Well, we nearly end. I want to thank you, Antonio, for taking the time today to share your background and insights into such an amazing native Salesforce application. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
So everyone, please check out the Fastcall App Exchange listing, where you can find a free 14-day trial, and of course look at that amazing 4.93 star rating. And also do head over onto fastcall.com if you want to look at other content and information about upcoming roadmap and releases. So thanks once again, everyone, for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.